Uh-oh.
It's us.
It's us. Okay, I was going to say, uh-oh, what has Stadia done now? But you go, uh-oh, it's us. You just bring it to the extreme there.
I thought I'd lighten the mood.
Yeah. So, we are back again, and we're here to ask, what has Stadia done now? Or basically, what has Stadia done this week is basically the question. And okay, I will answer this. I am not making a song and dance about this. I have spoke to Anthony. We are no longer part of the Stadia Bash community. This is just our show. If you want to watch it, you can watch it. If you don't, because it's not part of that, that's fair enough. That's your decision. So we are. It has all been. I can't say it. Say it for me. It's all been good, bad, and
amicable.
That's the bad boy I'm looking for. So don't be worrying about any of that. I am still going to give Anthony some abuse down the line. So that is it. I don't feel necessary to go out and tweet about it or anything like that.
Nope, no need. Done, dusted.
Yeah,
we'll still have a laugh.
Yeah, we're still having a laugh, and yeah, exactly the same show as before. So everything is exactly the same. So let's kick this off. Barry, how are you, and how are you in Stadia Land?
I am doing good. It's it's Monday, so good way to kick off the week. A busy start, and Stadia's been. I think the latest thing I've played on Stadia was Trine 4 last week with Cloud Gaming Dad. And then I've kind of had a bit of a busy few days, unfortunately, so I haven't had as much gaming time. But Trine 4 was was a blast. I think the two of us had some great fun with it. Did notice a little bit of kind of performance dip, but it's. I think sometimes at the moment there's a little bit of up and down with the performance on it. So it's just one of those things you kind of take the rough with the smooth.
Exactly, and that's the same for all cloud platforms. Thanks, Eddie, for joining us. Thanks, Eli. Thanks, Zero. Thank you, Kelly. Thanks, Ben, as well for joining. So basically, for me, I dived into some F1 on Stadia as well as Trine 4, and Eddie, absolutely not. I think it's just one of them things. The question was bound to be asked at some stage, and I'm just going to let you know, Sammy is just not with us tonight. He was doing his play along tonight of all the different racing games.
1,000,001 racing games.
Yeah, 1,000,001, and he's probably last in all of them and crashing them out. But Trine 4, absolutely a load of fun. Go check that out all over at Cloud Gaming Dad. Still Stadia Dad, but Cloud Gaming Dad. I think it was an absolute load of fun. I have to agree with you. I was having some issues when I was playing it, but I think we've talked about the issues over the last number of weeks. So I don't think there's much point to go over that. So Stadia this week has been pretty quiet, to be absolutely fair. There is a bit of news today. Not oh my god news, but Elder Scrolls Online is not being delayed. It's still coming out on the 1st. The update's coming out on the 1st, but the console platforms have actually been put back, so Stadia is in a much better position there. And also the singing game, One Hand Clapping, is getting an update today as well on Stadia.
Excellent. I'll need to check that out because I've got that in my library. So even though I can't sing, so
so when will we get into play along of that?
But that is not happening.
Why not? Why not?
I'm all for putting myself out there every now and again, but I am not doing that.
That'll be another fun watching you sing away. I mean, we can get all that hashtag Barry 100s into the mix.
What, break a few glasses along the way?
Oh, no. So here we go. We will share what the news of the official news of the week, and it is. I'm going to be frank. It's pretty boring news. It would have been more news if it didn't come. and that is Gods Will Fall and Outward DLCs are now available on Stadia. And there is an Assassin's Creed sale on Stadia. There's not much really to say there.
I feel like Assassin's Creed is always on sale on Stadia.
Yeah, unfortunately, yeah, it does feel like that. So again, we're still building up the library, and it is always the same games which are on sale. I think it would be good to actually see a big summer sale where basically everything goes on sale. That would be class to see over E3 time, and just for people to go out there and build up their libraries a bit.
Yeah,
so
that'd be a great idea if they could do that. If they could have like a summer sale where they can just literally go to town and kind of make everything accessible for everybody to expand their library would be great.
Yep, I will give you the rundown of the Assassin's Creed order, in my opinion, what ones you should get. I know you're not much into Assassin's Creed.
Nah, you say not much. I've missed some. I played the start, missed some in the middle, and I've come back towards the end.
I'd love to hear everybody else's thoughts, but here's the order for me for Assassin's Creed. First one is Assassin's Creed Origins. I think that is the best of the new style Assassin's Creed games. And Origins, Odyssey, and Valhalla, I would put Origins above that because I think it's a lovely mix. It's my favorite one of the new ones. Then it's a toss a coin between Odyssey and Valhalla. Then for me, Assassin's Creed Syndicate is the best of the old style Assassin's Creed, and Assassin's Creed Unity would be the last for me. So if you go, which one should you go for? For me, it's Assassin's Creed Origins with the Super Duper Gold Edition because the expansions are great as well.
Yeah, see, I'd have gone slightly different. The same three at the top, just different order. I probably would have prioritized Valhalla over the others. And then it probably would have been Origins, then Odyssey. Syndicate I've not played, and I've not played Unity yet either. I kind of they're the ones in the middle that I seem to have skipped.
Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. Syndicate, I absolutely love it. It's running about London.
Yeah.
It's just the perfect sort of chill out one for me. I will give warnings. For me, when I was playing Assassin's Creed Syndicate on Stadia, it actually made me feel sick for the first 15-20 minutes of it because of the 30 FPS. After I got over that, it was fine. But it's just the 30 FPS. It was just making me feel a bit bleh. So just keep that in mind. If you can notice the 30 FPS, I think you're going to see it. And it was just completely throwing me off after playing all the games in 60 FPS.
Yeah, of course. With some of the other titles we've mentioned on some of the other weeks on Stadia, we've given the tip away, particularly with Borderlands, kind of setting it down to balanced to kind of try and bring that in and get the better performance. Is there anything similar coming from Syndicate on Stadia?
Not at this moment in time. If I have seen it, is everybody is, or all the modes are 30 FPS basically. So, sorry, I was just fixing my camera there. It was going to fall down, and we don't want that to happen again. But no, not at this moment in time. So, again, Syndicate is my favorite old style Assassin's Creed, and Origins is my favorite new style. So I like they came out after each other. So
nice.
Take that as you want there. So basically that is the amazing Stadia news of the week. Shall we touch on
that was quick.
That was quick. We could touch on the slightly controversial topic of the life or Lies of P, where there was a little whoopsie out there, and IGN accidentally put Stadia in. It is coming to Stadia. Again, it was quickly retracted. However, where this actually blew up, all the different websites have taken the original IGN version of it, and they've just ran away with it and just popped it on all the different, or just lifted it and put it under their websites, and then they haven't corrected it. So
I mean, I think we touched on this on Friday on the roundup, and I think it's, sometimes it's one of those things that happen. Unfortunately, sometimes some people copy and paste. If they've been doing kind of maybe a number of articles or whatever, they might copy and paste on the platforms that it's maybe coming to. I think the difficulty where you kind of struggle with it is, I've got no issue with somebody printing something and then either retracting it or, taking it back. That's not a problem. The difficulty is, of course, when it makes it then out to other people, where then other people kind of don't retract it, don't update it. It kind of puts you in a place then really where you've kind of got the original source is kind of saying, no, actually it was a mistake. Then you've got other websites that are sort of saying, yes, no, it's still coming. And it kind of, as gamers and people in the community, you end up kind of feeling a little bit, for me personally, until the developer actually says the game's coming, and until you've got kind of a release date, I wouldn't necessarily say that, that a game's locked on to be coming to the platform anyway. But it does create a bit of uncertainty and a bit of angst that's unnecessary, probably, I think. Because ultimately it causes them people to kind of come out and say, well, why are you saying it is? Why are you saying it's not? So it just creates a bit of an awkward situation, doesn't it?
Oh, yes, it does indeed. And it just... And then there's people out there run away with things, and then it's an agenda against Stadia when it's just been absolute whoops. And again, what's being missed is there was another platform was taken off. xCloud was taken off as well, but that's not mentioned in this. So again, this was just a whoops, and we could actually see that it was. You could tell straight away it was a whips with the xCloud. It wasn't Xbox game streaming or whatever it's called, whatever the flavor of the week is. It was just under xCloud when this we'd have to put the full name in. So another big event, a big non-event in the Stadiaverse. So. Is there anything else over the last week on Stadia that I can think of?
I'm just trying to think, actually.
It's been pretty quiet in Stadia land.
It has. Obviously, they featured on the billboard at Google I/O. They were listed on the billboard, and then they had that. What's it called?
The shop, the Google shop.
Yeah, there was the store, which kind of Wolock pointed out when you kind of zoom in. They had it in there, and then they did have the One Talk alongside, where it was mentioned alongside Google Pay as well. I have to be honest, I didn't catch it because I think it was on at some unearthly hour in the morning. Don't know. Did you catch it?
That unearthly hour in the morning was 9 o'clock our time. 9 o'clock. Yeah. It was around that time, but it wasn't actually that unearthly because I was awake and I switched it on. It was nothing much, to be completely honest. Yeah. There is something to keep an eye on. What's his name? Alerted us to Google are having a game event in the next couple of weeks, and I have registered for that already, and that is Dustin. Sorry, Dustin, completely went out from my head. It's a Google for Games Dev Summit. I have already signed up for that, and from my reading, we may hear something about Stadia at it, but don't be surprised if there's not a great deal about Stadia in that. It seems to be more about Google Play and the infrastructure side, with like the servers for multiplayer games and things like that. There may be some Stadia things mentioned.
Yeah, and sometimes these are some of the little things, not to kind of overinflate it or read too much into it. But sometimes when these events do go on, they are worthwhile kind of keeping an eye on and seeing kind of what mentions come up, because it's not always necessarily the fact that with a Stadia is mentioned by name. It's sometimes maybe the context or the topic of discussion that it's mentioned in, which can kind of make the fact that they're mentioned all the more interesting.
Yeah, we covered Chaka last week, so we did. It's great to see that she has been appointed, and we have said that it appears to be. It does appear to be a good appointment from where she came from. The 3 million app downloads is good news. Just by it means 3 million people have downloaded the apps. I would just use the word caution about reading too much into that. Just like if I was to say to some Stadia people that GeForce Now has 10 million users, we always know what the response is going to be. That doesn't mean they're paid. This could be people just downloading it and checking it out. However, this is absolutely great news that it's being downloaded. So they're showing that there is some demand there for it.
Yeah, exactly. And that's, and that is the thing. Even if that's, if you've got a split of people that have downloaded it just to try Destiny or Bomberman on free to play, without having to kind of sign up in the account, it's clearly kind of showing there that there's been a number of people have obviously downloaded it to kind of check it out, see what it's all about. And it is, for all the ups and downs that Stadia can have, it's one of those platforms that once you've actually downloaded it, I should say, the app, of course, because you don't download games on Stadia. But once you downloaded the app and tried it out, it's a service that even if you are heavy into either your PC gaming, your console gaming, if you're potentially one of those people that wants a kind of supplementary platform sitting on the side that you can kind of dip in and out of, there's definitely, the scope there, and clearly people are, they're dipping their toe in the water to see what it's all about.
Yep, and that is the great beauty of cloud gaming. You don't need the console, so you can dip in if something appeals to you. If there's a great deal, say, hopefully they do this again. Then PGA offers, or the Borderlands free, and what was the other game they had, which was like ridiculous money? It was 3 of them. Was it NBA or something?
NBA was crazy price, wasn't it?
You could just buy that and just jump in. This is the opportunity Stadia have going forward, is they can just absolutely give a crazy offer. I think Borderlands, the super duper funky edition with everything was like £6 or £7, $10, $15 mark, wasn't it? It was really, really low priced, and I know a lot of people picked that up for that. So I do hope that they do that again and really start pushing it. And the hashtag Barry 100 is ticking over the words.
Oh dear, it's still. I thought it would have disappeared by now. I genuinely did. I thought it was a flash in the pan, and I thought it was going to have disappeared. But it's you guys are keeping it going, so thank you.
Yeah, it's going. The opportunities are there going forward. So
the other thing I was going to say as well, sorry to interrupt and cut you off there, is I've literally cut you off. You've gone mute now. I'd also be really intrigued to see how many of those downloads, kind of what proportion of those downloads come from mobile and what proportion of those downloads are potentially coming from Chromebook. Because obviously, as we've covered in the past, you've got the Chromebook perk, where if you're a Chromebook user, you get 3 months on Pro. And obviously here in the UK, they've been running the offer where you can have 50% off the Premier Edition as a Chromebook perk as well. So I'd be really intrigued to see, kind of dig deeper into that and see what that split is, just to see whether it is those downloads are being driven by Chromebook users or whether they are just kind of mobile users, where we know obviously mobile gaming is massive. Are they looking for a different way to kind of get access to kind of AAA, maybe slightly higher rated content on a mobile device when they're on the go?
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see that. And tablets as well. I think they gave a rough breakdown between Android and iOS as well, because it is they're trying to use or you're trying to gauge it. This isn't 100% confirmed. This is them saying roughly this is what we think using the tools and stuff they use. So, and there is a much bigger proportion of Android downloads than iOS, which is to be expected. So, yeah, it is fun and speculation about numbers and how many people does this, how many downloads, and what does this mean, what doesn't this mean. It's all good fun to speculate here.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, so I'm hoping that this trend continues. So how could they continue this trend going forward? So this is where we were actually going to do our conversational piece for today.
Yes, of course.
Or should we know, before we go into our conversational piece, tomorrow we should find out what the pro games are. Or touch wood, if it's not tomorrow, it'll be like Thursday. Let's hope there is going to be something good. We've actually done our predictions. I can't even remember what I predicted, but hopefully Ark finally makes its appearance. This game is coming in with so much hype in this for Stadia. It is unreal, and I really hope it meets up to the hype when everybody is wanting it to be.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always the same with, I'm not going to say just a big game, but with any game, you know, when there's a certain level of hype around it, a certain amount of anticipation, you know, there's a point sometimes where you can feel so almost overhyped for it that it maybe sometimes you feel a little bit let down when it arrives. And it's something I definitely don't want to see in respect of Ark, because it was a great announcement when they announced it was going to be coming into Pro. It's just a case of obviously us now actually having it. I mean, clearly it's going to be later than it was anticipated, but we know that it should be dropping any time around now, really, in order to fit in with the DLC.
Yeah, and that we posted something about that it was mentioned during the DLC as well that Stadia should be there. So touch wood that it is going to be there. So we're going to move into speculation land, since we're coming up to the lovely period, which is E3. And Kay's Ball is jumping the gun here about Battlefield 6. We're probably touching the Battlefield 6 here in a second. Do you think this is going to be a key E3 for Stadia, or do you think it's going to be very, very low key, and it's going to be a lot of people out there and many of the other content creators are saying Stadia is now in they're playing the long game, and we shouldn't really expect to see a lot of Stadia announcements?
I mean, I think in some respects, there's always an element where it is key to the platform to kind of go into E3 and have a presence. I mean, I know kind of people have started to kind of break off, do their own shows, their own events, not turn up to, to these sorts of things. But ultimately, it's E3 is that silly season. You really want to be in that position where your brand is represented with at least some of the titles. I think so. From my perspective, I'm not going into E3 expecting to see a Stadia logo plastered across every big hit, or everything that's kind of going to be multi-platform. But there are certainly stuff within there that I would anticipate. If obviously Ubisoft have got their Forward event in June, for me, personally that's a key one for me, because I really want to see what they announce in terms of what we hear about Far Cry 5, what we hear about Far Cry 6, even not going back in time. Sorry.
Can I just interrupt you there quickly?
Go for it.
If you're looking for Far Cry 6 information, I have heard rumblings that we may hear something about Far Cry 6 this week.
Oh, there we go. Little bit of an exclusive tidbit there.
You continue there.
Okay, that's fine. I shall continue. Obviously, I think all eyes are fixed on Rainbow Six in terms of Six Siege. But I think, again, we'll also be in a period where they should be talking about the new one, which I can never remember the name now. I've just got quarantining ingrained in my head, but I know it has changed. So I think those are the ones, with Ubisoft being the biggest supporter of the platform. That's really where my attention is going to be. You kind of almost feel like it's a given that, majority of these titles are going to drop. But nevertheless, it's one to watch. And that's, for me, is kind of wanting to see that those Ubisoft titles are coming. And of course, understanding whether as it now gets closer because it's been delayed, are we going to get Prince of Persia remastered on Stadia as well?
Yeah, Prince of Persia is the one I'm going to be watching for. Also, the new Division game is one for me. But the games I'm actually more going to be looking out for the logos for is the one with Caseball said Battlefield 6. I think that is going to tell us where EA think Stadia is. I think I've said this and I will continue to say this. I truly believe that FIFA and Madden are pretty much safe for this year. I think they are going to be coming to Stadia this year. It's the other games outside of that. I think that's where we're going to have a look. Ubisoft games, more or less, I think we're going to get all of them. Like you've been saying there, the Prince of Persia one is one to keep an eye on because that has not been listed as coming to Stadia at this moment in time. So the big one for me, and I'm going to continue to say this, is Take-Two and all their games in that bracket. And they've got so many coming out. We've got the wrestling games, GTA 5. I know it's an old game. It's been remastered. This is on its third generation of consoles now, but it does not wish to die at this moment in time.
It's definitely not just going away, is it?
It definitely isn't. It's just a bit like Minecraft as well. That game is just never ending, and Fortnite as well. So just checking out what they have got coming is going to be really, really key. Because just remember, they've got the big games like GTAs and all that sort of carry on, but they also have got the yearly franchises in the PGA and NBA 2K.
Well, PGA is going EA this year, isn't it?
I think they've broke off. They're having two separate ones.
Right.
They may call it something else because 2K have signed up Tiger.
Right. Yeah, of course. Yeah. From a golf game perspective, I think I've certainly had more fun with the EA golf games in the past. I think the last one was Rory McIlroy. But I personally feel that EA actually deliver a better golf game. So I think if it was one of those, coming back to you saying about watching EA, it's another one of those titles as to, okay, if we're locked on to get Madden and we're getting FIFA, do we then get the golf title at the end of the year so that the EA representation is sport? Is that the key to EA and their success on the platform? Or does it, as Maker said, do we need to go to the length of Battlefield 6 and see whether EA are that invested in Stadia to drop that as a multiplayer title on the platform?
Yeah, there's just so many of these devs where they've got a bit of a presence, and will this presence actually follow through? I'm going to chuck out a game which I think is perfect for Stadia. It's an EA game, and I'm probably going to get made fun of for bringing it up, and it's The Sims. I think that would be perfect on Stadia. You could do your sim things on the go. It's got all that DLC and things like that. It looks like a good fit for Stadia, and it'll broaden out the demographic as well.
Yeah, I think that's a really good shout, actually, because I think Sims would. I think Sims would thrive quite well in the cloud. Obviously, it's had a long-standing presence, across traditional platforms, but I actually think it would serve itself well to kind of keep pushing and kind of get up with the times and get into, cloud gaming. So, I'd like to see that.
Yeah, there's just so many games out there what I want to see coming to Stadia, and this could be a good thing, this could be a bad thing. With the way things are actually going, it looks like a lot of the games have been delayed into next year. So hopefully, with a lot of these games being pushed back, we're going to maybe see Stadia make a move to get some of these games. It's a point I raised on Friday. Gamers are looking for not. We're as soon as that game comes, we've seen it with Resident Evil on Stadia. Everybody was hype about Resident Evil, and now that has gone. It's like, what's next? What's next? What's next? Because if you're not, if Stadia is your only platform, you're sorry. I'll rephrase this slightly. Other platforms, as soon as Resident Evil 6 hit, Battlefield, or not Battlefield, Mass Effect came, and then Biomutant's coming, and you've got this one, you've got Ratchet and Clank coming, you've got Final Fantasy VII Remake, or whatever it's called here. We want to know what is coming next, because that's what we're always wanting. We want to know what the next big thing is coming, and you can look at all the other platforms and you know what's coming, and I just want to see the logos for Stadia out there to give confidence, so we know what games are coming, and then we can get excited about what is coming to Stadia down the line. Because even though we know Rainbow Six is coming now and For Honor is coming now, we still officially do not know when they are coming.
Yeah, that's a good shout, because obviously all we really know is that it'll be by the end of June, from what's been said, but there's kind of nothing been pinned down to kind of tell us exactly when it is. And I agree with your point on clarity. And I think that is the one thing that we certainly need, because there was a lot of people. Seems not odd to say, but you kind of sometimes feel awkward saying it. But there's a lot of people in the Stadia community who are completely kind of open platform. So Stadia is not the only place that they play. They play in multiple places. And sometimes it can be the defining factor. If you see a game announcement come out and you know that it's coming to one particular platform over another, and you've got access to both platforms, then you end up spending your money and pre-ordering it or buying it day and date on the platform that you know that it's definitely coming to. And then, if you get a last minute announcement by Stadia or a shadow drop or whatever, stuff like that, you then find yourself in a position where Stadia have inadvertently kind of lost out on money, in some instances. And that's the kind of thing that I think we kind of need to get away from, because I think it hurts Stadia, because obviously people aren't spending the money. Or sometimes, if it's in the case of Little Nightmares, a little bit of a reputation thing where they've kind of not announced it, and some of the people in the community who have got access to other platforms gone and purchased it and played it on other platforms, and then all of a sudden it's included in Pro. They didn't have to spend the money to then have access to it. So I think from a gamer perspective, from a brand perspective, it is definitely something that they kind of do need to make an assertive effort to make sure that they kind of move past that, because the uncertainty of, we talk about logo gate all the time, don't we? We see a new game announced, we see logo gate, and then you kind of have a section of the Stadia community that say, don't worry about it, logo gate, we're used to it, it's coming, I'm pretty sure it's coming, it'll probably be coming, no, it's not coming, or yeah, it's coming. Whereas realistically, you just want to be in that position of being confident. You want to have confidence in the brand that you're supporting, the platform that you're supporting, so you can pick and choose. Nobody says you have to buy every game you want on Stadia. You don't have to buy every game you want on PC. If you've got that ability and you are a multi-platform gamer, then chances are you are probably going to spread it out a little bit and play and take different things from different from different games on different platforms, especially with Stadia coming out and dropping exclusive features. Judgment with it, albeit I understand it may not be the best implementation, but State Share, or if you get something that's got Stream Connect, you've got all these little features sometimes that can be embedded into games that kind of make your choices there. All we need is the confirmation to say, yes, it's coming to the platform.
Yeah. We've got a big one coming up, and I know I've talked about this one all the time in F1 2021, because there is a sizable for Stadia. I'm putting the quotes in Stadia here. There's a sizable audience for F1 2021 on Stadia, and there is a very large amount of uncertainty if that is coming to Stadia, and that is a game which people will jump ship for because that's all they play.
Yeah, absolutely. The SRC, them, have already said they're kind of exploring and looking at other options, other possibilities. Because obviously it's the kind of game that they want on the platform.
And there's some of your grassroots supporters who put on regular events are going to be jumping to a different platform, and if you go to a different platform, you're more likely to buy more games, and it's a spiral. That is just one example. That is a brilliant question by Gandara here. Hopefully I clicked on. Yep, I did click. Why is it that some games like True Colors is announced as coming for Stadia 6 months in advance, and some games there is no info? What decides this?
I mean, there's a big part of me want to say the devs drive it. In the sense of, some of the devs may well know that their game is coming to the platform, but they might be in a state of development for the game, or in terms of porting it, where they're not quite sure. They're focusing on the other platforms as their primary focus. So they don't necessarily want to come out and kind of go too early. And then other times, I kind of feel like Stadia likes to be in control of when developers are actually saying, yes, it's coming to the platform, or more importantly, they want to be the one rather than the developer who's actually saying, the game is coming to the platform.
Yeah, I think it's a bit of both. I think Stadia does like to be in control, and we did have some. We've got one at the moment, which is up for pre-order, and it's been on for pre-order for quite a while now in Humankind. They seem to want to do some showcase titles as pre-orders, and we could pre-order Cyberpunk when that was announced as well, coming down date. I have a feeling there's a possibility they do not want to name some of these games are coming to Stadia because they're not unsure of when they are actually coming. And I do not mind if a game comes late to Stadia, unless it is an annual franchise and it needs to be early doors. If it's going to be late, it can't be more than 2 months, maybe 3 months at a push late for the platform. For single player games and less focused multiplayer games, it can arrive in Stadia a bit later, in my opinion. Like, I think that's what actually happened with Outriders. Is it right? Outriders, yes. I think that was actually pushed up too early. I think Stadia may have dropped some extra money there to get that day and date because there was a lot of competition. It was the big game of the year, and there was a lot of noise about it. We've seen how that has went, and because would that have been better coming now? Because they did originally announce that it was coming there, and I've been on record as saying I did not mind that it was announced as coming, but it was going to be late, and I would prefer that over the other ways. And there, Eddie makes a great point as well about Mafia. Mafia has been announced, but there is absolutely no sign of that yet.
Well, don't forget, it's I think Mafia, was it the original one? So the actual one that was the remake, I think, was they kind of said that was put on hold. It's sort of almost indefinitely until further notice. But
I'm going to ask you a question here, and this goes back to what I was saying earlier about what publishers I'm looking for. Who's in charge of Mafia?
It's 2K, isn't it?
Yep, and Take-Two under that umbrella. I have a horrible feeling that Take-Two have got cold feet about Stadia, and I hope I am wrong about that. We've got the Mafia ones. That's why Mafia is not turning up. So that is why I'm keeping a big eye on if NBA is coming and any other of their games. And another game, we did have him in the chat earlier, and now your mama knows. He has said, I'm putting him under the gun here, but he actually enjoys this, and said that if WWE 2K22, I'm assuming it doesn't come to Stadia, he is going to be looking at different platforms if that does not have a logo. So it isn't just the big games in NBA, because they may go, we're going to have that for our audience here, and they may try and get that one. But what about the other games as well? So there's just so many games coming out, but we'll have to keep an absolute eye on.
It's a valid. It's a really interesting point as well, because of course NBA 2K21, I think on the platform suffered, with lack of patching. Where it was kind of being patched on the consoles, they weren't really kind of giving the Stadia version a whole lot of loving to kind of bring it up to date in line with everything else. And that again, possibly tying into what you're saying about them maybe kind of either having second thoughts, cold feet. Maybe it's something else just to kind of keep an eye on and and watch the space on.
Yeah, I think we're going to find out where Stadia sort of is over the next couple of weeks. And again, I'll put my neck out here. I think we're going to get NBA 2K22. I think we're going to get that. I think we're going to get FIFA. We're going to get Madden. The rest of the titles from the big devs, I think, are up in the air. Ubisoft, I think we're going to get basically the vast majority of them. I think it's going to be more shocks of which ones don't come. And I think Prince of Persia could be one of them, which may miss out. But I think the Ubisoft games are pretty much safe. I think we may get one or two from the big publishers, but we're not going to get all the big games from all the publishers.
Yeah, and I think it's there was a game you mentioned that the FIFA Madden. There's a part of me that feels I guess I've kind of almost been in the opposite end of the spectrum, because I think you've been saying that you felt that Madden and FIFA was nailed on, and then there was kind of I've been fleeting between either they're the two games for out of the 5 that they announced, because they knew that that's what the plan was all along. So there's not kind of any other EA title. And then every now and again, kind of I get this touch of fear that says, actually, are they actually going to bring it? And are they going to maybe try and go a different route and a different direction to try and see if they can understand a little bit more about the demographic on Stadia? Now, personally, I actually feel like what they need to do is, in order to do Stadia and the community justice, is bring Madden and bring FIFA, both with crossplay, but day and date, to give it a fair crack. Because I think we were both, we've both been very critical about the 21 versions of the game. Madden dropped on the platform just before the Super Bowl, so the season was pretty much kind of done. FIFA dropped, again, back end of March, at which point we're 2.5 months away, a month and a half away from the season kind of being done, or 2 months. Is it unfair to kind of EA to then kind of judge those games' performance on the platform, when chances are, if you are absolutely into those franchises, chances are you would have already bought it elsewhere. You would have probably bought it either on a console or somewhere else that you might have access to playing it. So is this year the year where they truly assess exactly where their cloud gaming position sits with Stadia, in terms of, okay, we'll bring that Madden, we'll bring that FIFA, let's see how it goes. Undoubtedly, don't get me wrong, I know that the other platforms are going to outsell and they're going to sell more. That's just a balance thing, because the other platforms are, in proportion, they're much bigger. But do we see an uptake in those franchises on the platform purely because they're there day and date?
Yeah, I believe EA will bring FIFA and Madden to Stadia as long as they can make a couple of quid, make some money. If they can make a decent profit and bringing it across, they will bring it across, because it's still pumped out FIFA for flipping like years and years after like the Wii U, not Wii U is probably the wrong one, like the 360 or the PlayStation 3 had died. It was like when it was well into the PlayStation. As long as they can turn a bit of a profit, they're going to continue to do that. If we do not see them, it is going to be raise serious eyebrows. So I think, I'm still saying this, I think FIFA and Madden are safe for this year on Stadia. I think they are going to come, and please, oh please, be a logo when they actually announce it, because if there isn't, I think it's going to be some fun. I just feel like they're going to go after key games. We're not going to get all the games on Stadia, which brought into some interesting points, which we could go into if you want.
Yep, we can go into it.
Yep,
let's do it.
Zach brought up some brilliant question last week on Twitter. Basically, what is Stadia to you now? Is it competing with the big boys? Is it a complimentary service? Is it just a tech demo to become a white label down the line? Where do you see Stadia?
I mean, for me, yeah, I mean, initially it got me back into gaming. It reignited the spark of kind of wanting to play games, and I was excited for the tech, because the prospect of playing in the cloud, you know, bit of a geek at heart and all that. So, you know, the concept of kind of not having that traditional hardware and kind of a different way to play was really something that kind of, I was like, yes, this, I need to try this. I need to know how it feels, what the experience is like. You know, kind of fast forward time to where we are right now. Absolutely. I think there's the fact that Google still refer to it as a project speaks volumes for me, because generally, you know, a project is you set something in mind and you've got objectives to get out of a project. You know, right now Stadia sits as a kind of an additional platform to wear a game, but I do definitely think, with the way things have gone in the last 6 months, that what we are seeing is it is clearly heading in the direction of being able to power a gaming service for other companies who want the ability to play in the cloud, but maybe don't want the cost of kind of having to start from scratch and kind of build from the ground up.
So you're thinking Stadia has now moved into a glorified tech demo? So I'm probably putting that, maybe doing this too strong here, but like a glorified tech demo with paying customers to then do that. Do you think their original plan was to become like a competitor to Xbox and PlayStation?
There's no doubt. I'd like you don't hold a launch event to talk about your product and say, we're going to do X, Y, and Z. And, you know, they firmly put themselves in a position whereby they wanted to take on the big boys of the industry, or, you know, that's certainly what they said.
Okay. For me, I think I think it's been clear for a while now, and I think over the last couple of weeks it's become even clearer. There is a complete and utterly change in direction from Stadia. The power talk has gone, everything like that. The 4Ks are gone. It is just, here's the games and come and play the games in the cloud. No patches. I won't make that joke again. No patches, no downloads, or anything like that. It is convenience. I think we are headed to the white label scenario, but in the short term, the medium term, I do believe the switch is to a more. I don't like using the word companion platform or complementary platform, because if you're complementing a platform, that means you've already got a platform. So why would you buy games in Stadia if you've got another platform? That's just me saying it. But it's more, for me, it's moving more into like I hate using the term. I'm just putting this in quotations, everybody. A casual market, or gamers who are short in time and they just want to jump in and play in the short term, where AAA games are not the number one priority. And if you don't get, we'll talk about the elephant in the room, like Biomutant. You don't mind missing games like that, and then go in. You can just jump in and play games, and you don't mind missing a load of the bigger titles. You're going to get your indie games. You've got enough games to keep you going, and that's why I think they should be going into a sub model, rather sub first and buy games sort of position, rather than buy games and having the sub as separate.
Okay, so you want to see them change the construction of what Pro looks like?
Yes, and a couple of weeks ago on the Clyde Gaming Extreme podcast, Sonny was saying basically the same as well. Just expand Pro out so that you can have a lot more games, so you can just jump in and have a bit more reason to do it. Because if you're going to be perfectly honest, that's a good question by Eddie, which we'll come to shortly as well. When the Series X blades go into xCloud for $15 a month, you get a hell of a lot of the Stadia library, and that is including the AAA games included as part of that subscription. This is what they're going to be competing against down the line.
I mean, taking on that point, I am going to kind of
this point, or
no, the point that you've just made about xCloud. It's kind of, I'm putting you under the spot here. So anybody who sees Duncan's answer, don't scrutinize it too much, because I am putting him in an awkward spot here. Do you think the emergence of xCloud in the fashion that it has now come, it's now come out in what we're seeing in terms of the results, do you think that has dealt a fairly damaging blow to what Stadia's ambition was?
Yes, I think it has absolutely spooked them. Because I think it's gone back. We actually heard this from the leaked. Again, you have to get your salt. We're not talking about this salt. You can put as much salt in this as you want. With the news which came out during when SG&E broke up, the Bethesda deal apparently completely and utterly spooked Google. Because I will. Someone gave me this quote earlier, and I thought it was an absolute a Beezer quote here. I mean, it's a great quote. There's your Northern Irish for today. Google and Stadia walked into Harrods with £100 and expected they could get a hell of a lot of things for that. I'm trying to put that as with Tiffany's or something like that.
It's probably Macy's.
Yeah,
I don't know. Actually, maybe not Macy's, because I guess
I'm trying to think. It's like walking into the most really expensive store with $100 and not realizing that things are actually a lot more expensive and cost a lot more money than they first realized. I think they have thought they could get in this pretty quick, be early adapters and start grabbing the mind share and grabbing the people in to grab the play on Stadia. I think xCloud, even though I'll be frank, it is not up to scratch at this moment in time for a main platform. Stadia is, I'm going to say it, is more or less there for a main platform. But xCloud isn't there yet. And for me, the number one thing it's missing is the SSDs.
Yeah, you can definitely see that it is kind of, I think you can see its potential. And I think that's probably the most promising thing, but you can see that it's missing things. But there's a part of me that thinks that's also what's kind of scared the competition a little bit, because they've effectively you know, kind of taken what they've taken. I mean, we've heard them talk about it recently about how they kind of took the units to the data center, connected it all up, and said, "Well, let's see if this works. Let's see how it goes." And I think there's a possibility there that maybe they didn't. I guess it's wrong, but maybe they underestimated how quick someone like Microsoft could adapt. Because I guess if you look at the marketplace, you've got obviously PS Now, which was traditionally 720 only, which is now starting to emerge into 1080. Had a bit of a rocky start, wasn't all that sort of stuff. Is it a case that they maybe looked at the big boys and thought, we've got a real opportunity here, and all of a sudden one of the two right now has reacted in a very big way, and suddenly people are gone, holy crap, they've actually, at close to their first attempt, they're actually not that far away. By the time they then come to kind of making those upgrades, they then put themselves into a contender in the cloud, where they can actually have a cloud service which is comparative to the tech that we all love within Stadia.
Yeah, and this is where it's just going to get really interesting. Will Google be hungry enough to keep Stadia going until everything sort of catches up? So that is the question, and it will also come back to being sort of hamstrung by the Linux. It will come back to that as well, as we are seeing with GFN over the last number of months now. Double figures of games coming each and every week, and we're starting to see day and date releases as well. But Google will be around in cloud gaming. I think that is without question. But what one would it be?
It's difficult. I don't know, because there's almost a part of me that thinks that for obvious reasons you can't write it off, and I know it's going to make a comparison here, and I know it's a very different ball game, so I'm not it's not apples to apples in terms of a comparison. Look at what they did with Android. They started with with effectively something that had a very, very small market share, where they were kind of ridiculed, almost laughed out of the the mobile arena. But all of a sudden, they've devised an operating system which they've then got buy-in from the likes of Samsung, HTC, up until recently, Huawei. You've got OnePlus that are kind of using, obviously, that they've kind of started and gone on a trajectory where they've kind of got their own hardware that everybody kind of says, well, for the purest OS experience, yeah, the Pixel's great. But they've then leveraged this OS out to multiple different people who now rely on it, and then they've kind of taken on the mobile industry. Do we see Google dip their hand in and kind of do it in the same way when we're talking about white labeling the tech, and try and go that way where they kind of get it out to more and more people, and they're powering more and more people's cloud systems?
Yeah, there's just so many different ways this could go, but this is what makes it exciting. And I think without question, Stadia is still out in front. But I think the pack has just caught up so much in different ways. I've said it before, from a purely cloud gaming way, logging in or not logging in, just playing a game without any judder or lag, xCloud for me, where I live, and again, this is where I live, is running extremely well. And Stadia over the last couple of weeks has declined. But Stadia as a whole package, is still out in front. It's just the content is the problem at this moment in time, as it's just lagging behind, because it just feels like it's always in catch up. And that goes back to my point. If they went as a submodel first and then buying games as separate, it will take the pressure off having to have every game day and date. A bit like what happens in Luna with you're not expecting day and date releases in Luna. Whatever game comes to Luna, you are going to be happy with. And speaking of Luna, do you see that?
I see what you did there.
I see. I've lost a comment now. No.
Oh, no.
Does Luna classify as a complementary platform? And I'm going to say yes for me, because it's a subscription and it's a low price subscription into it. That for me, and it makes that a complementary one on top of it's likely to be rolled into Prime.
You beat me to it. I was going to say for that reason, I see it as a complementary platform because it's effectively it's part of that Amazon ecosystem. So Prime Video, Prime Music, all that sort of stuff. It's kind of, if you're in that ecosystem, you do see it become a complementary kind of benefit as with the rest of the Prime services.
And if Stadia we're going full sub model, this is what you're going to get: 60, 70 games in a go, and you're going to rotate out and things like that to like a proper full scale sub model, but you can buy games separate. For me, that will become more a complementary platform. And that may sound completely daft, but that's how I work it out in my head.
I don't know what's worse, the fact that you think it's daft or the fact that I think I get what you mean.
Yes, it's probably worse. Probably both. But I'm not going to say this is going to be a complete be all and end all E3 for Stadia or summer period, because of the Summer Game Fest and all these events happening all over the place. I think it's just going to be one we're going to have to keep an eye on just to see where everything pans out. And I'm absolutely glad they have got out from the Power Game. We have got out from the SSD wars, which were going on for a while. If you remember, just before Christmas, there was SSD wars about how fast Destiny loaded up in X, Y, and Z. I'm so glad that's over and done with. Because it's just not great. But just getting back to playing games, and that is what we want to. This is what we want to see, and I just hope we get a couple of the big games and a smattering of indie games just to keep going.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think there's certainly there's a need to bring selective franchises or selective big games to the platform. And some of those, it could be absolutely, if they are as selective and as careful and as calculated with which ones they bring, what they could find is it actually captures a large portion of what the people already in the Stadia user base actually want, which kind of means that you then get more buy-in from people in the community, and then you are supplemented then with a great range of of indie titles. So some of the best games that I've enjoyed on Stadia have not been AAAs; they've been indie games. So and that's the nicety from it from that perspective, is because of the pro model, you might not necessarily have tried these games otherwise, but they've given you kind of that experience where you're like, actually, they're it's bang on. So if you do go full sub, then you do have that benefit where you've got more people that will certainly spend money on DLC, as you've said in the past, because they're getting it as part of their subscription. They bring a new season out, or extra bit of DLC, whatever it is, and people are like, well, actually, do you know what? I got the game for free, so yeah, I'm going to splash the cash and I'll have the DLC because I want to explore more of that game.
Yeah, it does. Again, this is where it's all going to get murky down the line, because I know people want to buy games, people want to sub, some people want a mix of both. For me, I'm a big fan of the sub model, but I also buy as well. It will be, for me going forward, it will be a mix and match. And I think that is where we're going. We can see that even with the other publishers out there. We're not even talking platforms, we're talking publishers. We're seeing Activision do it with Call of Duty. It's went free to play, and that is absolutely massive. And then we also know that Ubisoft are going to be pushing a load of free to play titles going forward as well to supplement the big titles. It's just, everything is just really changing, and Stadia is in a great place to capture a lot of this if they can get things right. And comes back to marketing and PR, but we don't want to go down that. I'm just going look. I'm actually just having a wee quick look at my Stadia library here, and if we got most of these pro games as part of a subscription, people would be going, "That is an absolutely smashing sort of deal there." There's so many good games there, which people would go, I would be really tempted to that. And if you chuck in the occasional big banger, like the Tomb Raiders occasionally, we've got the Tomb Raider games, Metro, obviously Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, you could really, really get something going there. Because if the problem with the model at the moment, it's not a problem. To bring people across, they don't get access to all the games that went before.
Yes, yeah.
I've got all these games because I've been subscribing from day one. But if you're just joining now, you only get some of these games, which doesn't look as appealing. You have to be there for a number of months to actually build up this library, and that's the sort of, it's not an issue, but it's like the PlayStation Plus. You don't get all the access to the games which have came before. You only get them every month. I have no problem with these sort of things, but you need people to join your service, and you just need to get some more games going. It's just real interesting. It's just, there's no right answer. Someone can come out here and say they should just continue the way down here, and that's the right one. I can't go say that's wrong, but in my opinion, this is what they should be doing, because we don't know what one will work. But for me, I think expanding the pro selection, instead of getting 6 games, you get 10 games, or just go here. Stadia Pro is now changing. It is a submodel, same price, but you get access to 50 games. And if you buy a game on Stadia now, it's in 4K. You don't. Stadia Pro for 4K is gone.
Yeah, I know that's something we've talked about in the past, and kind of. I know I think specifically we were talking about, if you do buy a title, should you have the ability to play it in 4K if you don't have Pro? But yeah, it does feel, I think those particular benefits kind of feel like almost insignificant now. 4K and 5.1, you kind of look at it and you're kind of like, actually, I don't see maybe a need for that to be locked behind Pro anymore. Just kind of enhance the value of the Pro offering. And I can see the argument for that. I mean, I think at first I was very much of the opinion that actually, well, do you know what? If you've got the ability, if you've got a 4K TV or a 4K monitor, then you might be inclined to say, yes, I'm going to have Pro purely so that I can, so that I can experience those titles in 4K. But I think the longer as kind of time's gone on, the Pro library, some of the stuff that comes to Pro doesn't necessarily suit everybody, and you end up paying £9 so you can play in 4K. And I think probably we're maybe moved past that now, where it needs to just be a thing now where 4K is available if you can access it.
Yeah, that's where I came from. I used to be 100%. I understand why they're paying this. I can see I would defend that, but now as time has went on, the 4K isn't really 4K in a lot of cases for some of the titles, because that was the original big thing, was 4K 60 for all the titles, and we're nearly 2 years down the line now, and yes, there is a lot of titles which are 4K 60, but Valhalla is in 4K 60. Assassin's Creed Odyssey is in 4K 60. Most of the indie games are 4K 60. It's not the AAA games are 4K 60, and that's what sold me on the Pro.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. When you have those kind of titles, and especially in the cloud, as we've talked about in the past, the importance of having that 60 FPS. It's, you do notice the difference when you're accustomed to it. And the fact that we are seeing either kind of dynamic resolutions from games that are starting at maybe 1400 or 1800p and kind of then being upscaled, and then they're then kind of running at 30 instead of 60, or you're having to drop down to 1080 in order to get 60 frames per second. Yeah, it kind of it does kind of detract a little bit from the value of paying the extra to have it as a perk to get 4K.
Yeah, but I understand why it's there. I can see the justification of it, but it is just I think we're moving away to that, and I think by the end of the year, I think the model, if they haven't changed it, is going to start to look really, really dated when 4K is coming to Luna for select titles, and they are covering themselves so well there because it's for select titles. And I will say this: I don't think we're going to get 4K and xCloud this year. I think we're going to get the 1080 there with the Series X. I don't think we're going to push the 4K as yet, but we're going to get the benefits of the Series X blades by the end of the year. And I think the differences are just going to become stark, and they're going to have to adapt. Hopefully they've got something major up their sleeves, like a server upgrade or something along them lines, or they're going to pump some more money into these ports just to make sure that they're taking advantage of it, because with the rumored what they've paid for the Resident Evil ports, you can see the money has paid off there, because I'm not saying they're better than Series X or PlayStation 5, but they are extremely good Stadia ports where they're 60 FPS.
Yeah, they are. I mean, I've played 7 and 8. I played the demo of 8 and obviously played 7 within Pro on Stadia, and have then obviously compared it to kind of traditional local hardware. And yeah, you're absolutely bang on. The Stadia ports, you can see the fact that they've paid good money for it. It is a good solid port, but it's a good solid port in Stadia sense, not necessarily in a direct comparison to to local hardware.
Yeah, so hopefully we're at the 2-year mark. We're coming up to the 2-year mark. So you would think it must be in their minds for the first upgrade, because we know GFN have been starting to really, they've been talking about upgrading to the 30 series here shortly. xCloud's talking about the next ones. Let's be completely honest, Luna have not talked about any upgrades as yet, and that is up because they're still in beta and they're not even out over here yet. So I think it's a bit early for them to really be pushing that. But Stadia is starting to get into the age of where they should be maybe starting to talk. We're going to upgrade this in the next 6 months to a year. I wouldn't even mention how much we're upgrading to. I would just say that they're going to start looking at it or give some sort of tease. So final question before we go.
Go for it.
Do you think there will be a Stadia Connect or Stadia event during the summer? Or during like E3 or the Summer Games Fest?
Specifically during those events?
Yes, to be part of their events.
No.
And why not?
I still think they are. I still think that they are trying to create their own story, doing it in their own style. And there's a part of them which doesn't want to just follow suit with what everybody else does, because I think they probably know and realize that in the grand scheme of the big domain of the big boy arena, they probably are still there's no probably, they are still considered to be a small player. So I think their best course of action is to not necessarily wall to wall be included with all of the big boys all the time, and have their own event whereby they can kind of stand on their own 2 feet, do their own thing, and kind of pull in the people that are, invested or interested in the platform.
Yeah, for me, I don't think they should. I think they should avoid it. I think they should just continue blog posts, because if you remember last year with the Summer Game Fest and the Stadia event, it was Stadia event, and I think Jeff Kiltley seen it, and we're not going to mention this. We're just going to we're just going to hide it here, because if you remember, that was pretty poor and underwhelming.
Yeah, and I think if you look at the Stadia Connect events, or the Stadia events that they did last year, if you look at probably the overall quality, I think the one that probably stands in a lot of people's mind was the April one, because obviously we got the announcement of the EA games. And that's probably the one that sticks out for me, other than the one where they had Katie Wilson and the wrestler that you beat in Outcasters. There you go. See, I'll say it. I'll acknowledge it that I've seen it.
Yes, and I agree with Maker's point here. If Stadia is to have an event, it has to be meaningful. It needs to actually do something. If they came out and said, we're basically getting every single AAA game going, we're getting Battlefield, we're getting WWE, we're getting GTA, we're getting Madden, we're getting, my head's going blank here. You know what I mean? They're just every single big AAA game going this winter and into the next year. We're definitely getting them all. We're getting them day and date. And we've also got this sneaky wee exclusive.
No, I didn't call Katie mediocre.
Yeah. Something to really shake things up. If it's going to be, we're getting FIFA, Madden, and we're getting NBA. And no offense to the indie games, I love indie games. If you see my libraries, you'll see my libraries are absolutely stuffed full of indie games. And it's a load of these indie games, it will be laughed at out by the mainstream media and the gamers out there, and it probably will do more harm than good again. Because even in the Stadia community, the last defense were, bar that wrestling one, and which was pretty good. There were some things I would have changed, but on the whole, it was relatively positive. It didn't really make a big splash. So I think they need something to do that. So I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful that they will do something, but I don't think they should go out there and do an event unless they've got something to show.
Yeah,
which is going to excite people outside the Stadia community. I think that should be key, because just remember, this is going to be the shows this year which are going to showcase the Series X and the PlayStation 5, and that's not even talking about Nintendo one.
Yeah, of course, if they do a Nintendo Direct or a mini Direct. I mean, there's so many rumors about Switch Pro, floating around, that there's still more to come from Nintendo as well. And of course, they're still dabbling with the cloud. Every now and again, there's a title that dips into the cloud that you can access on Switch.
Game Pass, if you follow the Apple trail, you do that. Oh, one more tiny thing. With the rumors of today, put me on mute if you don't want to hear what some of the things are. It's not major. It's been out there since the weekend.
Did you just say put you on mute?
Yes, put us on mute here for like 2 seconds if you don't want. If you don't want to Eve the spoiler, put this on mute here. It looks like PlayStation have tapped up Final Fantasy. And it's not just one Final Fantasy, it is a couple of Final Fantasies, which exclusives. So just bear that in mind. And we know Xbox are going to bring the heat with the rumors of Battlefield 6 going into Game Pass day one. These are the sort of announcements you need to be careful, and you'll be competing against for space. So this is why I don't think they should do it unless there's something major. Just do like a recap of these games are following EA's conference, we can confirm X, Y, and Z is coming to Stadia day and date, or coming slightly after.
Yeah, and I think that's the one thing they do need to be. If they're not going to have a presence, it is the one thing that they need to be on. Is literally, if the games are there, then literally bang. As you say, blog post X, Y, Z is coming from this developer, or whatever. Here's your E3 roundup. Here are the games coming to the platform.
Yeah. Oh, Ruben, we actually answered this at the very beginning, and basically, go in with low expectations. I've had a quick look at this. I think Stadia will be mentioned. You can quote me, you can clip this. I have actually said, but I don't think it is going to be the main focus of this. This is going to be Google Play Store and Google backend servers, so like for power and multiplayer lobbies and analytics and all this sort of carry on. That is probably going to be the more focus, but I am expecting Stadia to be mentioned a bit. It could be interesting to watch to see if they're mentioning being a white label. There is a possibility that could be brought up during that as well. Yes, get your quotes there. Yes, that's what basically what the rumor is. It is actually taking a Final Fantasy 1 and making that into a Souls-like. I'm actually excited for it. Do you know why? The rumors are easy, medium, and hard. So they're making it Souls-like, but I think they're trying to make it a bit more accessible.
God, Duncan on a Souls-like, never.
I sort of count Star Wars as a Souls-like.
Yeah, I can see why. Actually, it does feel that.
Yes, that's the sort of deals they should be, which they could be making. Just like how Fortnite was trying to, or Epic was trying to leverage bringing Fortnite to Stadia by saying drop our fees. So yeah, there is always room for negotiations.
Activision's in the cloud. I do know.
Oh, we'll give it a little tease. Shall we give it a tomorrow you will find out how Biomutant is from young Barry. Young Barry has been playing Biomutant, and he's going to have some views on it, I think.
Definitely. Absolutely. I'm not going to spoil it. You just have to keep your eyes peeled on our Twitter feed and then our YouTube channel at some point after that, where I'll have some content as well.
Yeah, but thank you all for joining us, and I hope you enjoyed this. We're doing this every week. Sammy should be back next week and hopefully not intoxicated. That is why he's not allowed on it this week, because he was absolutely, totally and utterly last week. He has been given a one game ban for being drunk in the job.
I hope he's not drinking tonight because he's driving.
Oh yeah.
Oh dear.
Yes, Ruben. Okay, this is a Stadia show. We were lucky enough to be given a review copy of Biomutant via GeForce Now. So Barry has maybe been playing that over the last couple of days.
I can neither confirm nor deny.
Yes. I think it's safe enough to say, because other people have said it as well. But
yeah, of course.
Our review is coming tomorrow. So, Ruben, if you want to join us, reach out to us. I don't believe you. I've seen the tweet already.
Yeah.
But Ruben, if you want to join, hit Barry up, because I know you two talk about it. We're more than happy. So we will see you this time next week, or not this, an hour and a half earlier next week at 8 o'clock UK time. We're going to just continue this on, and I hope everybody sits back, enjoys playing on Stadia, because there's some damn fine games on Stadia that you can play. And we will see you next time. Let's click the
Bye.
right button this time.
I was saying.
Bond.